Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
We are celebrating volunteers this month, National Volunteer Recognition Month. Is that?
I believe that is.
We're recognizing volunteers and giving thanks to God for the many ways that God has given so many volunteers across the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod to serve. Today we head to Tucson, Arizona, to hear about volunteers with Operation Barnabas at Catalina Lutheran Church. It's a really unique way to serve in their community, and I'm excited to hear their story. Joining us, Dawn Hawk and Paul Lindberg from Catalina Lutheran Church. They serve as volunteers with Operation Barnabas there in Tucson. Dawn, thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And Paul, thanks for joining us.
That's great. Thank you.
How has Operation Barnabas made a difference for veterans in the Tucson, Arizona community?
Yes, we have a family that we have been helping for 3 years. The husband, Oscar, was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. He served in Afghanistan for 11 months and then came home and was in great need of help because his hand was injured in Afghanistan. And he was a diesel mechanic, and that was what he was trained for. And now when he came back, he didn't have a job. He couldn't use his hand. And he has a wife, Felicia, and he has 5 little children. Today, the oldest is 10, the youngest is 3. When he came back, they had a baby, and then the 7-year-old was the oldest. So we've been helping them for 3 years. It was a very difficult situation. The family, yes, did get help from the VA, but it wasn't complete help. They lived in a home that the VA was renting for them. It didn't have any heat. And even though Tucson is very warm generally, the winters do get cold, the nights get cold, and to have a baby in an unheated house was not an ideal situation. They did have some heaters, but the heaters were dangerous. They were plug-in heaters, electric heaters, so it was a major problem. They had no beds, they had no furniture, they had very little in the kitchen to cook with. They were also low on food because he didn't have any income coming in. So we supplied food. We worked with some other groups from another church, and then also a group of senior citizens from another area here that helped us to provide the food. We also had at the same time a gentleman from our church. He was a veteran, and he had to go into assisted living, and he had a house full of furniture and different kinds of household goods, and he didn't know quite what to do with it. He didn't really want to have like a yard sale, so he wanted us to use the materials that he had to help a veteran's family. And so that's precisely what we did. We packed up, I think I had probably 4 pages of listed items that went to this family, to Oscar and Felicia, like tables. We got beds for everybody. We supplied the kitchen with dishes and utensils, and it really did make a huge difference in their lives. So we were able to do that. He didn't have a car. Well, he did have a car. It wasn't working. Something was wrong. So we reached out to another congregation, and they supplied him with a car, with a vehicle. And he was able to drive and to be able to start looking for work. He also had to go to school, and he needed a car to go to school so he could be retrained. Well, in the course of all of this, the landlord of the home that didn't have heat, he sued them for had some extra charges and things, and the family had to go bankrupt. And so they had to go into bankruptcy. So in the last 2 years, they have been trying to get themselves out of bankruptcy, and that has been very difficult. We didn't have the money to supply them. We just don't have those kinds of funds. We do some small funding, and we reach out with materials and things that they might need and food. but we didn't have the money to help them, and there really weren't a whole lot of resources that they could rely on. So the bankruptcy was a huge hit. They live now in a small apartment that the VA is paying for, but with 5 children, they are outgrowing it. And so they are looking for new housing. But as you know, if you go into bankruptcy, it is not easy to get into a new apartment or a home because that stays on your record. And so right now they are struggling, and that's something we will be trying to help them with, to find resources to help with the housing situation. And the children are in need of clothing, new clothing right now. 3 of them attend school. The 4th one will be starting in the fall, and the youngest is 3. So that was one thing he mentioned that they can use, and that at our meeting this afternoon, that is something we will be discussing as to whether, how we can supply them with some new clothes. So that's my story.
Thanks be to God for your work with them and your ability to really pool those resources and help this family stay on their feet and get back on their feet and stay on their feet. What do you see as the needs of veterans in your community?
Probably housing is the main thing. I mean, it's very hard to have a decent paying job. And the housing market the way it is, it takes most of your money just for rent or a mortgage, and a lot of the veterans coming back and that don't have the jobs that they can support their families with.
I might intercede. I read in my newspaper this morning that the GI Bill 75 years ago, when soldiers came back, they would supply them with 1 year of compensation in wages. And that's not happening today. When our soldiers are coming back from being deployed, they do not, the jobs are not waiting for them. They have to be retrained sometimes, and they don't have any wages in the meantime. When you have a family like what we had, the mom couldn't work. She had to take care of the children. And so he couldn't work because his hand was injured. And so I would hope that we get something back to what the GI Bill provided, because we're not seeing it with the VA today.
So the veterans, as they're returning, have several needs, and financially, certainly, there are needs, but that then creates other needs, and sometimes complicated by, as you shared, by injuries in Oscar's story. How are you able to meet some of these needs through Operation Barnabas in your community?
We have a very generous congregation. If we have a need, that's where we first reach out. We put our need out in, we either announce it in church or we put it in a bulletin. And then we have related groups to our members. We have a women's group. It's called a Welcome Wagon group from the foothills. And if they find out that we have a need, they're right here at our doorstep. And we do have a collection box here for clothing and so on and so forth. That really, our people come forth. We are also connected to a lot of other organizations, and we can reach out for other resources. We can reach to the DAV. We have something called Veterans Helping Veterans. They help each other. There's the Red Cross. There's the Primavera, which is housing. We are very closely connected, and the American Legion, which, they're one of the largest Legion posts is in our area. Post number 132 here in North Tucson. And they have been very generous in trying to help us.
How has Operation Barnabas been a joy for both of you and for the rest of the saints at Catalina Lutheran Church to be able to serve and give back to the veterans?
Well, we enjoy going to different stand-downs and that. The city of Tucson puts on a stand-down that they put 2 on a year that are 3 days long, and they help the veterans and people in need. But our main goal is with the veterans, and they they supply food for them and give them shelter for a few days to get their lives back together, and they'll help with job helping, and in some cases they have medical help there, and just to get them off the street. In the last 8 years, we've helped quite a few veterans that way. And then we go to the stand downs, we give out Bibles. We usually have about 50 Bibles at each stand down, and they go right away. The people really enjoy the Bible, and we get to talk to them and find out what they're up to, and it's very rewarding. We also give out glasses, reading glasses, and sunglasses. That we have a member that's with the Lions Club, and he gets supplies with glasses. And then we make homemade cookies, which is a big thing for the kids plus the grown-ups. So it goes over very big. And we also give out packages for the kids. We give them a stuffed animal and coloring books and crayons and items that they can use, pencils, so that they can have something too with their parents.
For those of us not familiar with a stand down, we have just about a minute left. Can you briefly explain what a stand down is?
The city of Tucson gets together with they try to take the veterans that are on the street and have had problems, and try to bring them together. And they do have legal assistance there. They have a judge and some legal lawyers that will help them out if they have problems a lot of times in problems with legal stuff. And then they, in the past 8 years that we've been involved, they've probably taken 1,500 or so and put them back into apartments and into the job workforce, and they're not on the street anymore. And the mayor of Tucson, he's a big pusher and helps us with that. There's about 60 or 70 different groups that are there at this stand down at this. They meet at a motel in town, and they put them up for 3 days, and even their dogs are taken care of. They got a vet there, and they give them food for their dogs, and just helping them and trying to get their lives back in some kind of an order where they're off the street.
That is, and then the volunteers of Operation Barnabas, Catalina Lutheran Church, there to ready to serve and to show those acts of mercy. Wow. Well, thanks be to God. We are all out of time, but certainly thank you for sharing your story of Operation Barnabas in Tucson, Arizona, with Catalina Lutheran Church and the many other volunteers that serve with Operation Barnabas there. Don Hawk and Paul Lindbergh, thanks for being our guests on the Coffee Hour.
Thanks for sharing.
Well, it's fun recognizing, but also so insightful, too. I didn't realize the number of ways. I had no idea what a stand down was. Did you know that?
I didn't either.
I learned something new today.
I did, too.
Well,
yeah.
We're so thankful for the many volunteers and to get to recognize them this month during National Volunteer Recognition Month.
Yeah.
You're listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Golseth.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@KFUO.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.